Immediately, it was evident there was problems.
Kind Creations was founded in 2009 by Paula Walter. Her mission was to help people access the healthiest expression of pure plant cannabis medicine. She brought the first recognized CBD-focused capsule to the California cannabis market. Paula personally witnessed the devastation of the AIDS crisis and saw how cannabis and superfood oils helped her friends and family in their struggle for wellness. Teaming up with the dispensaries in the 215 market, she found a way to fund her compassion program through retail sales. Kind Creations' impact statewide is rooted in Paula's deep commitment to her compassion for those in need. As a nonprofit, she gave away 25% of her creations to local charities and those who could not afford treatment, without pre-qualification or any compensation. Kind's mission is now made possible by their success in the marketplace and through the generous giving from thoughtful people who believe in compassion.
Yes, I started Kind in 2009. Started as a nonprofit. Today it still is a nonprofit. I started Kind due to my background dealing with the AIDS epidemic in the 80s and 90s. My mom was an AIDS activist as well as my stepdad. My stepfather passed away of AIDS in 92, and I think that's where I got my compassion to want to help people. So in early 2009, I started playing with making salves for my neighbor. Shani had back pain and hand pain and things like that, and I started playing around with a couple of different recipes. And he traveled. He had family both in Mexico and Jamaica. He spent most of his time in both locations. And he started taking the salve with him to Jamaica and Mexico City. And everybody started asking him for more and more, and he'd take one jar and everybody would be using it up during his vacation. So he started importing jars and jars and jars into Mexico and Jamaica. And he came to me one day a couple months after I started making the salve, and he was like, I think you really got something here. This stuff works. And he told me he had $500 laying around getting dusty in a drawer. And he said, if you can give it to me in 6 months when my property taxes are due, I'll give it to you. And he gave me lessons on business and different things like that, and I was able to pay his $500 loan back in 3 months. And in fact, that was the only loan I've ever taken. And I was able to build that from a $500 loan to $1.2 million a year with no additional investment. That I'm proud of. My mom was passing away in late 2018, and I sold my company for 3 weeks to a company that was involved with a corporation in Canada. And I saw it was not working for me. I canceled the contract. I think that was the beginning of some of my wrong moves. One of the sad things is I felt the person that I put in charge of Kind, we'll call him Teddy. Teddy is an atheist and he doesn't believe in God. And I really felt scared about that. And even though Teddy and I had been friends for over 10 years, I felt like I needed God's presence in the building. So I hired a man that was a minister, and we'll call him Eddie. And Eddie came in with his son, and we'll call the son Betty. And they came in and they did everything but do God's work. And so it is kind of humorous that I hired these people to try to protect what I had created, which was God's work and giving it away to anybody in need. And it became a disaster. And I'm hoping that God sees fit to do the right thing. That's all I can ask for. I had people around me, but they didn't necessarily tell me what they needed to tell me. My lawyer didn't necessarily tell me he thought some of these people were not necessarily the right people. My accountant friend didn't necessarily tell me some of the people were not necessarily the people they would have included in their company. Even my psychic friend didn't necessarily tell me she didn't necessarily feel it all for all the people involved. So in retrospect, if I would have gotten better advice, sought out better advice, I would have done better. I was really scared. I was burned out after 10 and a half years of doing this all by myself. I really wanted that feeling of partnership and this feeling that my legacy was going to continue, which was the compassion program. That's what sets me apart from the rest of the people in the industry. It's the fact that if I didn't have enough to give away, I didn't sell it. So if I was low on indica caps, which is one of my main seller, but I didn't have enough to give to the compassion program, it went to the compassion program and it didn't sell. So I didn't necessarily make business sense to people. So that's why I went with friends, because I felt like they knew me and they understand that sometimes we make decisions not based on money. We make it based on doing the right thing. And that's one thing I'm proud of. All my decisions, whether they were wrong and not, getting to this point where I've lost my company, I thought I was doing the right thing every time I made a decision. I feel really responsible for what's happened to my staff. After Teddy took over, it seemed like my staff started dropping like flies. They were all put on probation for being 5-10 minutes late. Even though Teddy would be 2 to 3 hours late for meetings, it drove me insane. Watching my staff leave either voluntarily or knowing they're going to be fired any moment and choosing to leave before that, it was the hardest decision because they all felt like they were leaving me behind. And I felt like I had let them down. To this day, the thought about my kids not having money or not knowing if they could pay their rent or how they're doing, it's beyond anything I could even imagine. I'm struggling myself. But these guys give their all to me and all their patients, thousands of kids, people, veterans, dogs, horses, cats. And to think about them not being able to take care of themselves because Teddy took it all, because Eddie wanted to be hateful and fire all the people that were loyal to me, and that Betty had such an ego, he couldn't let anybody be better than him at anything. I feel very responsible for all this. These people really hid the real selves until it was too late. By the time I saw who they were, it was like watching the devil in disguise. Today I just found out my oldest employee just got unemployment today, was granted unemployment. These people fired her, and they had tried their best to make sure that everyone was denied unemployment. And today I just found out that she was granted unemployment because they saw through the BS. And she has a young baby, and it is the Kind baby. And my staff have forgiven me. I feel grateful for that. The hardest thing is to watch them be hurt. Absolutely. So many of them have lost their jobs in COVID as it is, and they're struggling, and they know I'm struggling too, and it's really hard to know that, because I've done my best to always protect them. Ooh, asking me if I have regrets at this point. Absolutely. I have multiple. First regret is not believing in myself enough that I could just go to a bank and get the money I needed to build out my new building. If I would have done that, I'd have been fine. I could have stayed a nonprofit, made a profit, went forward. I was scared. Being a woman by myself, I felt like I was on my own and alone, and I felt like I needed people to help me. I'd had many partners through the years, and the best ones had always been my lovers. When they weren't my lovers anymore, that's when it went awry. And that's where this went awry. And so in regrets, I regret not believing in myself. I also regret not keeping with the deal with the business that I sold for 3 weeks. I should have let that go. Some of that was my ego and humility. I wasn't ready to hand over the reins yet. And looking back, I regret that. I have some apologies I need to make there for a friend. Since Teddy and Betty and Eddie all spent their money, I'm still having to deal with those people. So I'll be able to make those apologies and figure out how I'm going to get their money back, because the person that signed the settlement papers is me. And the other regrets, putting these people in charge. Oh my God. Actually, I knew nothing hardly about CBD. The lab called me up and they're like, oh, you've got the first CBD pill. And I'm like, I heard about that. What is that? And they're like, we thought you'd be more excited. And so what it was a bad buy. In cannabis, in those days, there wasn't the regulations and you didn't have people you could just go and buy from. So you just had to figure out what you could do. And so I had found some people and we met on the side of the road and I had bought like 10 pounds of some cannabis, sent it to the lab to be checked. The THC was low, so it was actually a bad buy, but it had CBD in it, and that's what the lab caught. And so I had the first CBD pill in California, and I had a list of up to 500 people wanting that. And the only person that had CBD in the early days was Elemental Wellness. That's a dispensary in San Jose, and they were my partners for many years. They still are the best in the business. They were the only ones that had our CBD for probably 5 years. We did different things where we actually grew CBD and then gave all the profits away for breast cancer. We've done a lot of charitable work together with Elemental Wellness and CBD. Today, I'm planning a new nonprofit. It doesn't matter what happens with Kind. It's a movement. I continue on. And we're going to start with homeless. Right now, I've got some ideas for some salve for their feet and doing some foot baths and some different things that can heal some people out there in the world. And all I can do is just keep moving on. Maybe my next thing will be foot salves. You'll all be buying some foot salves for me and helping me help the homeless, because that's how I like to do it. So I'll be finding something to sell for people to buy so I can help some people. And don't give up on me, because I'm not giving up on me either. And I'm not giving up on you.